The security tape began in a burst of static. On the small monitor were two people, male and female, sitting across the table from one another in a nondescript interview room. "Have you ever eaten a god?" the man said. He looked to be in his mid-20s, short dirty blonde hair and matching scruff, athletically built, square jaw, okay features. Not handsome really. You probably wouldn't have looked twice at him if you walked past him on the street. The only thing that stood out about him now was the cold emptiness in his eyes. Well, and the straitjacket, of course. "Is that what she was to you? A god? Was what you did some kind of worship?" The other person in the room, presumably the doctor, was young but older than the man. Late 20s, maybe early 30s. Hair so dark that it approached black, worn pulled back in a loose ponytail. Business casual dress, sensible shoes, khaki slacks and a white shirt, covered in a long, white lab coat. Her eyes were hidden behind a pair of thick-rimmed glasses that reflected the harsh fluorescent lighting of the interview room. There was no real furniture in there, save for the chair that she sat upon and the one that he was strapped to, both bolted to the floor. "God, spirit, demon, it's all the same in the end, isn't it? All the same kind of inhuman thing," the man said. "So," she leaned forward, "what was it that led you to believe that your victim," she checked her notes, "a Miss Deborah Wright, wasn't human?" "Oh, that's a long, boring story, Doc. You wouldn't want to hear that. And anyways, I can tell by the tone in your voice that you wouldn't believe me if I told you. You guys never tested the bodies, did you? Did a genetic or genomic test, whatever it's called. That would show you. I shouldn't be here, you know. There's no law against killing monsters. One would imagine you would still need a hunting license. You can still get arrested for hunting pigeons in the city, after all." "That's true, I guess. I didn't think of that." He shrugged as best as he could with the restraints. "Hey, maybe that's why they had me locked up in here instead of some jail cell. I never did get a trial, you know. Cops and the DA are still trying to decide if I'm mentally fit for it. They said that it could take a year or two of hearings and evaluations and all that. I guess that's democracy for you. Though to tell you the truth, if I didn't know there were monsters out there, like a year ago, I would have said just throw me in the deepest hole you could find. No sense wasting all those tax dollars." "You almost sound like you want your trial. There's a very good chance that they'll find you fit to stand, and you'll end up in prison if you do not cooperate, Mr. Nelson." "Call me Brent," the man said. "At least with a trial, I would get to tell the truth, make people understand. And I don't know, I might not mind prison. They might let me out in the general populations. I bet there are a lot of monsters in prison. The real kind, not the human kind. Though I guess those are monsters too. Do you think that's how it happens, Doc?" "How what happens?" "How they become monsters. Like real monsters, they do inhuman things until they literally become inhuman." She wrote something down in her tiny notebook. "Tell me about Deborah. Did she do something you considered inhuman?" "Deborah?" A confusion passed over his face. "Who's Deb?" "Oh, the girl. The one that they caught me with. Sorry, I never got her name." "Go on," she said. "Well, I never saw her do anything. See, words kinda fail me here. I can't say inhuman because I saw her do things that literally weren't humanly possible, but they weren't evil, I guess. I never personally saw her eat anyone or steal anybody's soul, but that's what monsters do. They are predators and we are the prey. Why else would they hide from us? I mean, otherwise, we would have fairy princesses hosting talk shows and the real dragon wives of Beverly Hills. So you saw her doing inhuman things, and that's how you knew that she was a monster. Well, for starters, she had green hair. He laughed. I know, there's such a thing as hair dye. I knew goth kids too back in high school. But that's the thing. These creatures, they love to hide in scenes like that. Let their freak flag fly front and center and nobody's the wiser. I would have never been the wiser. Not until Kato showed me the way. So this Kato, he showed you that there were monsters. Well, okay. Let me start at the beginning. Otherwise it won't make any sense. He said. Go ahead, I'm listening. The woman leaned in closer. It all started last summer. I was working on a job site downtown. She checked her notes again. This would be a construction site. Right. The new Mitsumori building downtown. Nice building, really. But it was kind of a pain in the... I think you're drifting from the point. She interrupted. Sorry, Doc. It's all these drugs they got me on. They make me a bit fuzzy. He paused to try and scratch an itch. So, like I was saying, I was working at the new building downtown just doing my thing. Kato, he worked there too. A little strange to have a Japanese guy on the site, and he was kind of a strange guy. But hey, he worked hard so nobody cared that much. And then one day, I forgot my jacket on the job site. It was cold in the morning, but it got warm. So I didn't remember until I was halfway home. I turned around to go get it. When I pulled in, I see Kato dragging a woman into the partially completed building by her feet. Well, I'm not the bravest man, but I couldn't let that slide. So I hopped out of my truck and I went after him. And what happened then? She leaned in, curious now. The lights twinkled in her glasses. I go in and I yell something. I don't remember what. And I see that he's got some kind of rope around the woman's neck and is choking her. So I do what anybody would do. I tackled him. Brent looked around the room. I'm getting a little bit parched. Can I get a drink of water? I'll call for some, she said. So you tackled this Japanese gentleman, saving the woman. Right. So I tackled him and we're on the ground struggling. And the next thing I know is I hear this horrible screeching sound. Unearthly, you know. And I turned around and the woman had gotten up and was trying to pull the rope off of her neck. So, was she still alive at this point? I'll say, she trying to pull it off of her, but it's super tight. And then she changes. Into a monster. Her eyes started to glow bright white, like incandescent bulbs in her head. And her hair starts to move in the wind, but there isn't any wind. She snarls and I see she has teeth like daggers in her mouth. Like Bela Lugosi on steroids. So she was a vampire? I don't know what she was, except for being mean. She gave up on the rope and walked over to us. She picked me up one-handed and tossed me to the side like I was nothing. And then she went after Kato. When you say that she went after him, what do you mean? What was she going to do? Oh, mess him up some kind of way. He smiled, but I didn't give her the chance. I was never more scared in my life, and I didn't know what was going on. But I know you can't let something like that go after a man. And so I jumped on her back and I grabbed the rope, and that seemed to take the fight right out of her. While I held her there, Kato pulled out a funny little knife and stabbed her right in the heart. He grinned, clearly enjoying the memory. Blood sprayed out everywhere. It was so gross. She flinched, but tried not to let her lapse and composure show. So he killed her while you held her. Eventually, even with a knife in her heart, it took another 10 minutes for her to fall over. And even then, she was still breathing till Kato had finished it. And how did he finish it exactly? It's kind of a morbid question, isn't it, Doc? I suppose it is, she said. Well, to answer your question, he kind of chanted something in Japanese. At least I assumed it was Japanese, and then he slit her throat. And then he licked the blood from the knife. Again, gross. But then a white mist kind of came from the body and it flowed into him. Not much. If it wasn't dark, I don't think that I could have seen it. But it was there. And then what? You have a dead body. I presumed you were covered in blood. I can't believe you were able to get away with it. This wasn't Deborah, and so there were more monsters, I take it. You're right. He explained to me that she was kind of a demon or a god. He used the Japanese term, so I'm not quite 100% on the translation there, but I think they're kind of the same thing. And that he was one of the last members of a proud brotherhood in charge of protecting people from the monsters. He said that they would kill the monsters and drink from its strength to give them the power to defeat even greater monsters. And you believed him. Well, I had seen what I had seen, so that gave him some credibility. But I still wasn't sure, and so he offered to take me on a hunt, let me share in the bounty. And you accepted. Well, by then we had dumped the body on the job site, buried it where nobody would find it, and I saw how strong he was, and then I changed into my spare clothes. Always keep a spare uniform and spare casuals on a job site. It comes in handy. And we were a few beers in. You helped kill a girl, and then you went out for beers? She sat up straight, seemingly shocked. It was a monster, not a girl. And yeah, I was pretty shook up. And you went with him during his next hunt. Right. About a month and a half later, this one was a vampire. Fangs, glowing red eyes, obvious baddie. I think that he took his time picking on it so I wouldn't feel so bad about it. And it was like he said. I breathed in the mist and I could feel the power. I felt younger, stronger. I went and I hit up my ex-girlfriend that night, and then I hit her up 3 more times, if you know what I mean. This last bit he almost whispered, as if murder was nothing, but sex was a strange forbidden thing. It might have been the oddest part of this talk so far. So you kept doing it? Yeah, about a month on average, sometimes more, sometimes less. It got harder as we went along. I think they were figuring out that they were being hunted. Werewolves, vampires, demons, fairies, succubus, and once some weird lizard thing. I asked about ghosts and stuff, since that seemed less messy, but he said the secrets to ghost eating were lost. Lost how? Well, he said none of the hunters left were taught how to eat ghosts. Apparently, it is an advanced art, though I think Kato could have done it if he knew how. He got really quiet when he talked about it. I think it was the only time that I saw him look truly frightened. He said some kind of super strong monster had destroyed their leaders. that it was hunting down the demon eaters one by. She cut him off. Demon eaters. Yeah, that's what we call ourselves, themselves, whatever. Though once he referred to them as the dragon eaters, though I don't think he knew that I caught that. That didn't strike you suspicious. It did, but then later he mentioned ghost eaters, and I figured that's how they used to divide up. Ghost eaters, dragon eaters, demon eaters, etc. Specializations, you know. Now, if it had been angel eaters or something, then I would be worried. But dragons? He shrugged as best he could from the confines of the straitjacket. We never killed a dragon as far as I know. But then I imagine America doesn't have a lot of dragons compared to Japan. I suppose not, she said. He smiled again, feeling vindicated. So what was I saying? You were talking about the thing hunting down these people, she said. Right, so apparently that was the reason he had to keep secret and had to get stronger. Back in Asia, demon hunting is like a national pastime, so they can be more open as long as they don't kill somebody's ancestor, or the spirit of the pond or whatever. The good spirits. But over here, people don't understand that. And if you hunt too much, they'll get wind of you, and so you have to be careful. Kato and me talked about inducting some more people into the club. I was having the time of my life. Got a promotion because I could work like a dog for days without a problem. Lost weight. Acne cleared up on my back. Everything was coming up roses. But you were alone when the police caught you. Shot you several times actually. I assume the power, as you put it, is how you survived. Right. I felt kind of bad hitting a cop, you know. They were just doing their job and didn't know better, so I tried to run. But you can't outrun bullets. But Kato could. He frowned. Maybe he could, but he sure as hell couldn't outrun whatever got him. Tell me about it. Well, we were walking home from the bar after work. It was pretty late. The extra strength we had meant that we really had to put away the beers to get a buzz on. But we didn't need as much sleep either, and the promotion meant that I had a few bucks to spare with my friends. He shook his head as if to clear it. Anyways, it was just the two of us at that point. Everybody else had passed out or pussied out. We were just walking along back to my truck to drive home, when I heard a sound like cloth rustling in the wind. I turned around and Kato was gone. Gone. The murderer genuinely looked sad at this. Just gone. There was an alley about 10 feet back, so I went to look, thinking maybe that he was trying to ninja a piss out. But the alley was empty. So he vanished completely then. Do you think he decided to leave you? Flee the country, perhaps? No, he wouldn't do that. We had become bros, you know. And besides that, I said it was empty. Not that it stayed empty. As I was looking, I heard this high-pitched scream and a wet, ripping sound, followed by a thud, and I turned, and what's left of Kato was laying there in a pile like it had been dropped from the roof, which I guess it probably was. I felt kind of bad leaving him, but he was gone and I wasn't sticking around in case I was next. But you carried on the work. I had to, he shouted. If you had seen what they did to him. Poor Kato. Those animals tore him to shreds. I had to become stronger if I didn't want that to happen to me. Tears started streaming down his eyes. Did you work alone? He took several deep sobbing breaths before he was able to continue. I'm not stupid. I know you want to know if there's another hunter out there, but no, I went at it alone. I couldn't risk somebody else's life for them. It wouldn't be right. It was a lot harder working by myself. Back in Japan, they would have a whole team. Me by myself, I had to restrain the monsters, take them somewhere private, and then do the ritual that he had taught me and kill it. That's why I had caught him the first night, after all. And that's why you got caught, she said. It wasn't a question. That's how I got caught. I took too many too fast and the cops caught on. I guess it was still better that it was them than the monsters. I mean, I'm safe in here, as I would be anywhere with all the cameras and guards and security and stuff. How many people would you have to kill to get in here? He laughed. And that's my story, Doc. Never told anybody before, but it kind of feels good to get it off my chest. Another deep breath, and he tried to wipe the tears on his face off on the straitjacket, but he couldn't quite manage. So, do you think the jury will believe me? He smiled. Do you believe me? There's just one thing I don't understand. Only one? You're doing better than me then, he laughed. How did you decide who was a monster and who wasn't? Did you follow them around? Watch until they used their powers? Powers was said in such a way that you could hear finger quotes, even if she managed to hold back actually doing so. At first, but once you partake of them several times, you begin to be able to feel them, their energy, almost like a smell. It can take a while to figure out the source depending on how strong it is. You start by concentrating, and to take a deep breath like this. He closed his eyes and he demonstrated, taking a deep and nosy breath through his still running nose. His eyes popped back open. Doc! Yes? Doc, there's something in here. I can smell it. It's coming for me. He was wide-eyed with panic. You have to believe me. I do believe you, Mr. Nelson. I'm sorry, you said to call you Brent, didn't you? You believe me. Then you can help me escape, can you? But she ignored him. And for the record, nobody needed to be killed. She stood up, adjusting the lab coat around her. What are you talking about, Doc? That's the other thing, Brent. She took off her glasses, placing them carefully in her pocket. Her eyes were a beautiful, brilliant blue. She smiled. I never said I was a doctor. Her eyes began to glow with a rich, inner lamination that was just as blue and just as beautiful. The security tape ended there. Neither the woman nor Brent Nelson had been able to be located.